Come for Molly Malone and stay for Denny Boy. Check out the smallest bar in the world. Sleep in a castle.
But don't drive off a cliff.
We're the travel agents coming to you with tips, tricks, interviews, and voyages by cruise. The travel agents bringing you the latest travel news.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
We're your hosts for the Travel Agents podcast. What a joy to get to chat about Ireland.
Such a cool country, man. Absolutely.
You only have about 5 million in the Republic of Ireland, and then about 1.8 million up north in Northern Ireland. So a small country.
Yeah.
And I think what's beautiful about that is that you can really do a lot.
Absolutely. There's a lot to see, a lot of things to do.
Yeah, and
crazy.
it's not so spread out like some countries that are a little daunting as far as, we're going to need 2 or 3 weeks to do this.
Yeah.
I think what we're finding is a lot of people who just have a week can actually get a lot done.
There's a lot to see, and definitely doable in a week.
I know, a couple of years ago, I had a couple just go to Dublin for 4 days. Like a long weekend.
Sure.
Yeah. The first day was just a flight over.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey.
They had a blast.
Yeah.
It's really not that far from like New York. It's about 5 hours?
Yeah,
4.5
it's not
in
that
the air,
bad.
5 hours in the air.
Yeah.
So really not bad distance wise. And it's relatively inexpensive, as we'll see.
For sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree.
Now, there's a couple ways you can travel Ireland. I'll kick it off with the first way, which would be your standardized bus tour. This is load up the bus with 46 people, and we are going to take you on an expertly guided tour around Ireland. These come in all shapes and sizes. Although small group departures are becoming quite popular, where they limit it to 23 passengers.
Absolutely.
So you still have the full bus, but
a lot more room.
A lot more room, and then it doesn't take everyone forever to get on and off at every stop.
But this is how you got to experience Ireland, right?
It is. In 2016, I did the Introduction of Ireland tour with Globus. Globus is a tour company that's been around for way longer than we've been alive.
Sure.
And they're kind of the pros. They handle a lot. They do the whole world, but they started in Europe, I believe.
Okay.
And they really specialize in tours of Europe.
But your trip was a 7-day trip, and that trip in 2022 is around $1,600 to $1,800, but it does not include a flight.
So you have the flight on top of that. Now that's going to include your transportation, your accommodations, all your breakfast, a couple meals, some cool excursions. Just trying to think if there's anything else. And there's always going to be some optional extras you can choose from.
Sure. Does it have a guide? Come with a guide and everything?
It does. A guide and a driver on the bus. The guide will become your best friend.
Awesome.
He or she will sing you Irish songs in the bus, and you're singing along by halfway through the week.
They're fun. They're really fun. They really are.
Yeah, exactly.
But another big way to see Ireland is to just do it yourself. Do either rent a car or take a train trip. We just built an itinerary for a client, and they did a 10-day train trip around Ireland, and that costed around $2,500 for them, but we were really getting them that luxury experience. You can do it for as low as $1,500.
Yeah, that's per person.
Right,
Exactly. Right. For that particular trip, we had some upgraded hotels right in the city center. We included some pretty cool tours as well, including they went up north to do Game of Thrones, as well as they did the Ring of Kerry tour and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of a nice out-the-door price. But if you're on a budget, you don't need to stay right in the city center. You can stay in an economical room, and you can do this for, closer to, I've even seen some Groupon deals for like $900 a piece, out the door. So, I mean, it's insane, but it might be worth it to pay a little bit more and have a better location, as we've seen. And the last way to do this would be for those of you who don't want the bus tour, but you're also not comfortable doing the train by yourself or renting a car, because renting a car is going to be key to getting around this country, because the train, as we've seen, does not go to all parts of the country, everywhere you want to go. And you have to be limited to the train schedule. With the rental car, you can go wherever. So, but if you're not up to driving on the left-hand side of the road, then the private chauffeur luxury driver would be that final option. And that's definitely going to be up there in price. I think I have some clients who are paying somewhere between actually, I think it's higher than what I guessed before. I think it's like $5,000 to $6,000 per person.
Wow. Okay.
For about 10 days. And they're splitting that between 6 people. but it's all top level service with the nicest 5-star hotels and the best guides.
Okay. Ooh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. If you can afford it, do it.
Should we talk about defining words?
I'm ready.
Here's 3 words to help you. Here's our defining words.
All right, Will, hit us with our first defining word.
Sure. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's so much truth to it. Our first defining word is green. And if there's one thing that you'll notice as soon as you land in Ireland, it's how green this country is. It's incredible. I've never been to a country this green. Just these deep green rolling hills. And you'll see some sprinkles of white, and that's the sheep. But it's incredible how green it is.
Sure. I agree with that totally. Second word is Guinness.
Oh, yeah.
The Guinness, I tried Guinness a couple times before going, never liked it. Got to Ireland, loved it.
It's different in Ireland, that's for sure.
I've tried it once I've been back to the States, and I hate it.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
I mean, it's so good in Ireland. It's crazy.
If you don't like Guinness, go over there and have it right from the tap. It's like delicious. Had it with like most lunches and dinners. Kind of never stopped. And so Guinness is huge. And number 3?
Castles. I mean, the thing about Ireland, it's an old country and it's experienced a lot of history. And there are these large old castles, from the Ross Castle around the Rings of Kerry area to the Blackrock Castle in Cork. You will find castles all over the place in Ireland. It's incredible, and you don't get tired of them. At least I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to touch on that, because there's so many, you really have a range. If you desire to stay overnight in a castle, Ireland is a very real, tangible possibility of doing that.
Absolutely.
We're going to see later in our episode when we have an interview from a tour guide of Ireland. I think he just said he's going there for a couple $100 per person per night, right?
Yeah, I think it was like 200 or something like that.
Okay, there you go. And I mean, there are the castles that run $1,000 to $2,000 a night for that premium luxury castle suite.
Of course,
but there are some affordable castle options if that's your dream.
Absolutely. I think that's all we have for defining words. Let's talk about our highs and our lows.
Sometimes things are good, sometimes they're bad too. It's highs, lows coming to you.
Well, thanks to our interview with Garvan from northwestern Ireland, I can pronounce this correctly. So my first high is the Cliffs of Moher. I would have said Moher, but I'm going to try it with my best Moher. So this is the Cliffs of Moher is on the west side, a little bit south, but west side of Ireland. Yeah. And these are gorgeous cliffs that jet into, the ocean just kind of splashes up onto it, crashes up onto it. Yeah. And there's tons of there's luscious green grass and lots of seagulls that are flying in and out of crevices. And there's a whole visitor center. And I believe it's only €8 per car to get in.
Yeah, that sounds right.
A lot of tours will include this a stop, because the Cliffs of Moher will be one of the top parts of the entire trip. It's going to make the trip. It's worth the whole day trip from Dublin if you're not going that way anyway. Yeah. Do the Cliffs of Moher. Yeah,
I would recommend doing a tour if you're coming from Dublin, or if you want to do like car rides and everything like that. You're probably want to station in Galway. That's the closest big city to the Cliffs of Moher. Yeah. And it'll really help you out if that's what you're looking for.
And side note, there is an airport over there called Shannon, and we do have flights from New York into Shannon.
That's right.
So that is an opportunity if you want to start there and end in Dublin, or vice versa, but it's not that hard to get back to Dublin for your flight home.
Right, exactly. So for my high, I'll have to admit, my experience with the Republic of Ireland is pretty limited. I got to experience Dublin for about, 10 hours when I went to Northern Ireland. And if you're interested in learning more about Northern Ireland, we did an episode on that in itself. But we did a day trip to Dublin while we were in Northern Ireland, which are 2 different countries.
Right.
And one of my coolest experiences with Dublin was the Guinness storehouse. And we're going to talk about that, like we've talked about a lot with Guinness, but it's just so cool because you get to learn more about Guinness, how it's made, and you also get to learn how to make the perfect pour. Yeah. You get instructed how to do that. You get a cool certificate.
Right.
And then the end of it was so cool. You get to go to, it's almost like the Sears Tower in Seattle. You're in this big tower with a
Space Needle.
Space Needle. What'd I say? Sears Tower?
Okay.
Not Sears. Totally different. But you get this 360 view of Dublin, and you get a free pint of Guinness, and it's just a totally relaxed vibe and a gorgeous view of the city.
Right.
And it's just so cool. It's really worth the price of admission. And I recommend booking in advance, because then you get that opportunity to cut that line and get in there ASAP.
It's what's cool about that, just to hop in, is that it's a very interactive tour, and it's good for families too.
Yeah. You absolutely can bring kids and stuff. It'll still be fun.
But last high will be in the southwest part of Ireland, and this is the Ring of Kerry tour. Kerry is the county. Ireland is broken up into so many like counties.
Yeah.
And by the way, don't be confused when they say the word county first. So there's County Kerry, County Clare, County Dingle. I don't think Dingle is one, is it?
I'm not sure.
County Donegal, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So this is in County Kerry, which we can just call it Kerry. You think of it as Kerry County. And basically it is just kind of like a circular ring road that hits just some of the most gorgeous views you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And just driving it is an excursion in and of itself. I just recommend you don't be the one who's driving, because you're going to miss out on all the sights.
Oh, wow.
There are stops along the way.
Okay.
But you really want to be able to look out that window while you're doing it and get great pictures.
Is it sort of similar to the Golden Circle in Iceland? Kind of same idea?
Well, good question. This one, there's more opportunities to fall off.
Okay. So it has a little bit extra excitement there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really cool.
I could see it. It's like the Golden Circle in Iceland in that it's that full 8-hour day where you're going to see a lot. You're going to do a lot. You're going to have a lot of great pictures, and it's definitely going to be a highlight.
Really cool. Okay. Well, I mean, I think that's all we have for the highs. So let's talk about our lows. Let's talk about the things that we regret, or maybe the things that we had a bad time with. For me, this trip to Ireland was really my first time as an adult going overseas. And it was my first experience in what you could call a mega city in Dublin. And I remember being really overwhelmed, and we didn't really have a plan. Like, wasn't a planner at the time, no experience traveling.
Right.
And I remember just being so stressed out about the idea of missing our bus back to Derry in Northern Ireland. And so we were just running around constantly. Like, we made like the conscious decision to only spend like 5 to 10 minutes at these certain locations. Yeah. Like we made Guinness Storehouse like the one thing that we saw and spent our time with.
Right.
And then from there, we're like, okay, well, we have like X amount of minutes to go from this location, this location, this location. Yeah. So we were just running around, and it was really stressful, and it didn't make for a really great time for me. And that sucks, because I look back on all the things that Dublin has to offer, and I'm just so excited to go back. And it didn't ruin the experience whatsoever. It didn't ruin what my viewpoint of Dublin is at all. It's just, I'm just so excited to go back and do it right.
Yeah. No, you said that so well. Sometimes just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
It's good that you got to go there.
Yeah.
But I've just learned that the hard way when planning trips for clients and trying to do like, okay, you have 4 nights to Ireland. Let's do Dublin, Waterford, Killarney, Galway, and you can do it all. And it's kind of like, well, we saw it all. Well, we did it all, but we saw nothing because we were so busy checking in, checking out, moving. Yeah. Unpacking, repacking. We didn't get a chance to see anything. It would have been better if they did 4 nights in Dublin.
Sure. Yeah.
So my low was kissing the Blarney Stone. So I already have the gift of gab. I'm not sure I need it. They say if you kiss this stone, you will get the gift of gab. You're going to hear from other tourists who are on your tour that, oh, I hear that local Irish people pee on the stone at night, so the tourists kiss it. Haha. Are you going to kiss it, Brian? Yeah, I am. But I don't think that's actually true. It just can't be true. But basically, the Blarney Castle, I don't know the history, but it was beautiful from the outside, a little bit underwhelming from the inside, like most castles are, in my opinion. You walk to the top, a lot of stairs. So be careful there. I don't remember an elevator. Anyways, you wait in a long line to lie on your back where there is someone to help you. Lean back and kiss the Blarney Stone. And after each person kisses it, the Irish man in charge has a bottle of water, like tap water, that he squirts over the area you kissed as if to cleanse it. or I don't know, sanitize it.
I'm wondering how that's going to change.
A post-COVID world, there's just no way that they're going to be kissing, but it's such an attraction. And I did it. And it's weird. You do lie on your back and you lean backwards and kiss it upside down.
Interesting.
Like Spider-Man kisses the red-haired girl.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, just really overrated.
Sure.
I just want to throw in a quick side note in case you're thinking, well, I guess I won't go to Blarney Castle. The Blarney Castle gardens around it were gorgeous, and they were absolutely worth the €16 entry fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have to wait a long time to kiss the stone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. There's a line of people, and some people are not as agile, so they get down on their back and lean backwards and then get help to kiss it. They need a couple people to help.
Interesting. Yeah,
and so,
I can see that.
Oh, it took forever. And it was like, man, why on earth did I do this? And half the bus didn't do it. And I wish I would have been with that half.
Yeah. So you can go. You don't necessarily need to kiss the stone. You can see some of the cool things about the area.
Maybe most people don't. I don't know.
Okay.
It's a bottleneck up there.
That would be me. Oh, man. Okay. Well, how about our tips? You want to get into it?
We have so many tips. Let's go.
We have a lot to talk about.
Tips from the travel agents.
So like most places, I recommend that if you're interested in one thing to do, like if you're interested in Guinness and seeing the storehouse, I recommend booking in advance. But particularly there's one item in Dublin that is so popular, and that's the Book of Kells located inside Trinity College. And I didn't get a chance to see this because the line was about an hour and a half wrapped around the college. But if you book in advance, you can get a cut the line pass. So there are so many things like that that I highly recommend. Just doing it in advance. You won't regret it. And I missed out on the Book of Kells, and that sucks.
This goes with your tip earlier by having a plan. When you have a plan, you can enjoy your trip even more, I've found, right?
Yeah.
So being able to have those skip the line tickets in advance allows you to figure out your day.
Yeah.
Because you're locked into it, and that's a good thing. Now you know what you're going to do that day.
Yeah. But real quick, just to tell you what it is, the Book of Kells is an illuminated copy of the Gospels. But it's super old. It's so pretty, and it's in this college or this library that was used in Harry Potter to film some of the scenes. You feel like you're in Harry Potter, right? That's what I've heard almost all the time.
The library is maybe the highlight of it at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's so much to see in Dublin. What are some of the things that you liked in Dublin? Yeah.
So, we already talked about the Guinness Storehouse, which if you're wondering, is it the Guinness Museum? It's the same thing, Guinness Storehouse. But nearby Guinness is the Jameson Whiskey Museum. And that's a tour. I believe they limit it to about 12 or 16 people per tour. They have like certain departures throughout the day. They give you a departure and you can go eat and like come back for when it's your time. The Jameson Whiskey Tour is very informative. It was a little bit nerdy. Like if you're into whiskey and distilleries, you will love it. They really get into the science behind it. Whereas the Guinness Storehouse was very interactive, very fun, hands-on, really good for families and children. Jameson whiskey, not good for children and families. I'm also a big fan of the hop-on, hop-off bus, because it drops off at all the cool highlights of Dublin, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm always a fan of hop-on, hop-off buses. Yeah, I'm such a schmuck for buying a hop-on, hop-off.
You don't have to
ticket,
walk and stuff too. So
yeah, exactly. Nice. But it also takes you to Kilmanheim Jail, or Gaol, Gaol, which is the old English pronunciation of jail. But the Kilmanheim Jail is a famous jail, which our interview will talk a lot more about. Yeah, that jail.
Get in depth with the history and stuff.
It's the one thing in Ireland and Dublin that's not right in the city center. So that's key. Right. If you have the hop-on, hop-off bus pass, it takes you all the way out there.
Yeah. But hey, there are a lot more things to Ireland than just Dublin. And
exactly.
You don't need a car in Dublin at all, but
it would be stressful if you had one.
Yeah, it really would be.
Parking and just the busyness of it.
Yeah, just like any mega city. Yeah. I wouldn't want to rent a car in New York City. So,
so get your car rental when you check out of your hotel in Dublin.
Yeah, so like if you have a car and you're departing Dublin, I recommend it so that you can see all the other things that Ireland has to offer, but you can see all of these things that we're about to talk about by train.
Right.
And the first thing I wanted to talk about was the city of Cork, which is a southern city. It's a coastal city, and there's so many things to do in Cork. but one of those things being the Blarney Castle is really nearby. But I was building this itinerary for a client, right? And he was really into golf. And there's this town about 30 to 40 minutes south of Cork called the Old Head Golf Course. And it's a famous golf course for like PGA tours or stuff. I don't know anything about golf, but I mentioned this because it's such a beautiful golf course that even as someone who's not interested in golf, like at all, I want to play at this course just because it was so beautiful. Yeah. It's located in this town called Kinsale. It's a peninsula coastal town, and this golf course, you're just like, I don't know, you're in the middle of like this cliff almost, and you're just surrounded by these beautiful waters and all this stuff. And the city of Cork has so many things to do. There's an old English market, some cathedrals. There's Blackrock Castle that's in the city area, and that's kind of overlooking the cliffs. So you get this really cool view of the ocean as well. And I think it's like a 2.5 hour train ride from Dublin.
Yes.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, we talked a little bit about the Cliffs of Moher. Do you want to talk about Galway?
Yeah, so Galway is a really great town. It's a port city on the west coast, and what makes Galway so special is just that it's a very outdoorsy town. And there's lots of like performers, and it's like really like a lot of artists, right? So, just walking through, if you're into seafood, there's a lot of seafood options there as well. Just kind of walking through the streets. There's some particular streets that don't allow cars. It's just foot traffic only. A lot of shops, a lot of performers. I remember there was a local band playing that, leave them kids alone. Who sings that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Leave them kids alone. Hey, teachers. Leave them kids alone. That's Pink Floyd. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Worth it. Yeah. If you're still hanging on to the podcast, hang in there. We got more to go. But definitely think lots of parks, and go during when there's good weather, because there'll be more people out and more performers.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a great place if you do want to see the Cliffs of Moher. Mm-hmm. It's a great place to stay. And also the Aran Islands is a really cool place too. You can do a tour where you go to the Aran Islands and visit the Aran Islands, and then take a cruise to the Cliffs of Moher, and you're seeing it from the ocean side. So sweet. A bit different of a vibe.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely different than the classic view, but it's interesting just to, I don't know, do something different, I guess.
I wonder how many desktop backgrounds the Cliffs of Moher has capitalized on.
I can't even imagine.
So in Southwest Ireland was one of my favorite towns called Killarney. There is a 3-hour train from Dublin direct to Killarney, but that one always leaves at night. I don't know why, but there's some morning ones where you can do a connection along the way if you want to get there early. But Killarney's a great town because it's just like a national forest, I believe.
Yeah, there's like the big national forest there.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and you can do one of the cool tours through there's a horse jaunt where you get like a horse carriage and you go through it, and you
cool.
You end up at Ross Castle, and so that's really cool. But downtown Killarney is just really cute, and it's not busy. It's not, well, it might be busy, it might be crowded, but it's not, it doesn't have the stress that Dublin would have, as Dublin's really a big city with like a whole financial district and all that, right? Killarney's just like cute. There's not like, you're not going to find like name brand stuff. It's all like local stuff. Go get some Murphy's ice cream. Go stay at the Killarney Tower Inn and just like relax, and lots of cool little B&Bs and like golf courses. And I went for a jog because it was just the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful jogs of my life.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. It looks so gorgeous. There's things like the Gaps of Dunlow there, a lot of nature-y type things. And it's a great place to sort of set yourself if you want to do the Rings of Kerry tour or something like that.
Oh, yes. That's where you would mostly start for the Rings of Kerry tour.
Yeah, and right in that area too is Dingle Bay, which is kind of included in the Rings of Kerry, but you can almost separate it out in itself, because it's worth going by itself too. But kind of going closer back up north, closer to Dublin, just south of it, probably about 45 minutes south of it, is this area called the Wicklow Mountains. If you're a fan of Rick Steves, this is a place that he highly recommends when you go to Ireland. But just like the name suggests, it's a very mountainous area, so it's a really great place for hiking and a lot of wildlife. You might see some wild deer and anything that you might imagine that you would see in Ireland, sheep, you name it. And if you're interested in waterfalls and you like going on hikes to see waterfalls, it has it has the largest waterfall in all of Ireland, which is called the Power Skort waterfall. I'm probably butchering that, but we'll have it in our notes so that you can see it. So if you're interested in hiking, the nature type stuff, Wicklow Mountains, I highly recommend it.
Next, Ring of Kerry, I already talked about in the notes, but just an extra plug, make sure to do the Ring of Kerry.
Yeah. And, if the Cliffs of Moher is not your thing, maybe you like to, I don't know, be like a hipster and you like to do the things that are off the beaten path.
Right.
They say that Donegal is one of the most beautiful areas in the world, and it's Northern Ireland. And let me clarify, I'm not talking about Northern Ireland, the country. I'm talking about Northern Republic of Ireland. Mm-hmm. So you're still in the Republic of Ireland. It's just north. Donegal has the accolade of being named the #1 spot to see in the world by the Lonely Planet, and is also named the coolest spot in the world by Nat Geo in 2016. So some pretty high praise there. And I mentioned the comparison to the Cliffs of Moher because there is an even larger and even better, they say, cliff called, I'm going to butcher this as well, Sliabh Liag. It's Gaelic, I'm sorry, but I will have it in the notes. And one of the coolest things about this is it's free.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to pay to go see it. Isn't that pretty cool? But the whole area of Donegal is just supposed to be just knockout gorgeous, just so cool. Yeah. So if you're really, again, into the nature thing and you have a car, I highly recommend going to Donegal and seeing it. If you're taking a trip to Northern Ireland, you can, it's just a few miles from the city of Derry is the area of Donegal. So
you can do them.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely doable.
So I hear there's a place that's likened to the Valley of the Kings in Ireland.
Yeah.
Tell us about that place.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Our guest will talk more in depth on the history of it, but it's called the River Boyne, the Boyne Valley, and it's just north of Dublin, probably another 30, 40 minutes. And if you're interested in history, it's a good place to learn a lot more about the history of Ireland as a whole. But if you're not into history and you're into fishing, it's a great place for salmon and trout fishing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and also just a quick plug, if you do like history, make sure to stay tuned for our interview at the end of the show.
Oh man. Yeah.
Our tour guide he's a history buff. So
he has his degree in Celtic history.
So there's so much cool things to do. How do you get around? And we talked about trains. We talked about the bus tour, but I would say the most common way to do Ireland is to rent a car, and they drive on the left-hand side of the road. So even though the Republic of Ireland is part of the EU and they use the euro, they do, because they're over there with the island of the UK, kind of, sequestered. Is that the right word over there?
Ooh, getting fancy.
No, I mean, they drive on the left-hand side of the road like the rest of their neighboring countries.
Sure.
So they say the 3 best tips when you rent a car is, I'll throw in a 4th tip. My 4th tip is get an automatic car, because it's going to be tough enough driving on the left-hand side of the road, trying to do stick shift as well. On top of that, I mean, no one needs to be a hero here. Just get the automatic car. They have automatic cars in Ireland. Someone tells you otherwise, it's not true. They have automatics. Always have a full gas tank. Make sure your GPS works before leaving the lot. Make sure that cigarette lighter works, and always stay happy.
That's great. I will say we have some really close friends that rented a car, and they did a car trip around Ireland, and they said it wasn't that bad. They said they'd do it again. It was so fun. They had no problems. So it's that stigma that like you rent a car, and we're not talking like crazy driving like Italy or anything like that. It's just you're driving on the left hand,
sure,
and you have those cliffs. So once you get used to it and get your bearings,
I think like outside of Dublin, the traffic isn't bad.
Yeah,
the toughest thing is going to be the steep drop-offs, as well as the narrow lanes.
Sure.
And the narrow lanes only bug you if someone's coming the other way or wants to pass you. Otherwise, like, it's really not a big deal. So,
yeah.
And they know there's tourists there, and they know to be careful. So
of course.
They're ready for you.
Sure, yeah.
Let's go back to Dublin.
Sure, we have to. There's something that we didn't talk about that's very important to Dublin.
Where are you going to stay in Dublin?
The Temple Bar District.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go have a drink at the Temple Bar.
Which is an actual bar. It's named the Temple Bar. It's the most famous bar in the area. So famous that it's named the area Temple Bar District.
Sure. You can stay at the Temple Bar Inn. Relatively, it's a nice price. It's going to be a little loud maybe at night, but that's okay. You're not there to sleep. You're in Dublin to have fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But Dublin's is very walkable and very beautiful. And as we learned from our tour guide who we interviewed later, actually gets the least rain of any part of Ireland.
Which is really interesting because I don't know. It might be just... No, it didn't rain on us, thankfully. I guess it might be just having just done the New Orleans podcast. I'm thinking water tables and stuff because it has the River Liffey that cuts through the city of Dublin. So I immediately think, okay, has this big river, maybe get a lot of rain. It doesn't, apparently. So that's pretty cool. And the River Liffey is just a really beautiful river just to walk along. If you're in the Temple Bar area, you're gonna be right there. Yeah. And
at the end, there's that beautiful bridge called like the Dublin Harp Bridge. And it looks like a harp. Yeah. Get a picture by that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I want to touch on the food real quick because you're in Ireland, so the food's going to be terrible, right? And this was the only country where I totally felt fine getting Chinese food in Burger King when I was downtown. But I do know people who, like Kristen, really liked the food, didn't she?
No, she did not. I liked the food.
You liked it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was you.
Yeah, I like the food a lot. I like a good potato and I like a good stew.
A beef stew.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. So good.
Yeah. Okay. I would just like the chicken that was cooked well, but just didn't have much taste.
Okay.
That surprises me you like it because you like flavor.
Well, I mean, it's just like all things, right? You can go to New York, which is, or you can go to Paris, one of the biggest culinary capitals in the world, right? And you can go to the wrong place and have a bad meal.
That's true.
And it goes back to that idea of being prepared for where you're going.
Yeah.
The idea that Ireland and the UK have a bad sense of culinary skills and you can't get good food anywhere in these locations is just not true. It's just not true. Especially in recent years, they've really ramped it up with their culinary skills. There's a lot of cool places to eat.
Especially when your city's so global.
Yeah,
you're expected to have good food if you have a lot of tourists as well.
I think they have a few Michelin star restaurants in Dublin too. So if you're really looking to fancy it up, go to a Michelin star restaurant in Dublin.
And so one drawback to like a group bus tour is they're going to take you to a place. They take you to eat. You don't get to pick.
Okay.
So they're going to take you to a place where they're going to try to cut prices because it's already been paid for, right?
Yeah.
So what reason do they have to wow you?
They don't care. Yeah.
They need to get you in and out for the next group, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be mass produced. Not a lot of love baked into your piece of chicken.
So just prepare yourself.
Will, when's the best time to go to Ireland?
Okay, yeah. So they say that the best time to go is April to June, and I can attest to that. We went to Ireland in the end of May, and we did not get the famous rains that Ireland is known for. I think it rained once. Granted, again, I was in Northern Ireland, but it still counts. Same weather, same country, same island, I should say. Sorry. So I'd go in April or May or June.
Mm-hmm. There you go. I want to talk a bit about how to book Ireland. So first off, flights, you can book round trip into Dublin. If you want to get fancy and do a multi-city into Shannon, you can do that for probably a better experience, but Shannon is going to be more expensive than Dublin, probably 9 times out of 10, or maybe every time, or maybe the same price. As far as hotels go, just want to be weary that, or be careful, I should say, that rooms are tiny, just like in all of Europe, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the rooms that you're going to like the best price-wise are going to be the eco room or economical room.
Sure.
Now, those are like, there's enough space for 2 bodies and 2 suitcases, but nothing else. So forget doing your squats in the room. Like there's not even room for that in the bed, right?
Yeah.
So it might be worth it to pay that extra $40 or $50 for that deluxe room, just so you can have room to breathe. And then lastly, I'm just going to touch on train and buses. So for the to book a train, You just go to www.irishrail.ie, and then to book a bus, because the trains don't take you everywhere. So let's say hypothetically you want to get from Killarney to Galway, but you'll see that there's no train that does that. So, and you don't want to go all the way back to Dublin to get to Galway, but there is a bus, and the bus is pretty inexpensive. We're talking 10 to 15 bucks one way per person, right? And the buses are safe. You would go to buserann.ie. That's BUSEIREANN.ie, or you can just Google book Irish buses. But Will, any other tips you want to throw out?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on Northern Ireland very briefly. So if you're not familiar with the area, this could get a little confusing, but the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland are two different countries. The Northern Ireland is a part of the United Kingdom, but what's cool about this is because they share the same landmass, they're on the same Ireland proper, you can go to Northern Ireland and see a bit of a different culture if you're interested in seeing more of the northern part of the island. So I recommend it. I really like Northern Ireland. So something to keep in mind if you're interested in it.
It's pretty cool that we did the Northern Ireland episode first and then the Republic second. I like that. It's very different. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Ready for our standby items?
Absolutely.
It's safety and other info with standby items. Here we go.
So, Will, we mentioned everyone has to try a Guinness, but what are you going to tell those people who just don't drink beer and they are not going to try a Guinness?
Sure. Yeah. So when we went, my wife, she doesn't like beer, and she wanted to try Guinness. And so she talked to a few people at the Guinness storehouse, and apparently they have this thing called blackcurrant syrup, which is it's a syrup made out of a little berry. It's called blackcurrant, and they put it in the Guinness, and it tastes nothing like Guinness afterwards. It's like really sweet. And it's very different. So if you're not into beer, but you still want to drink Guinness, you can get blackcurrant added to your Guinness, and it's non-exclusive to the Guinness storehouse. You can do it anywhere in the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I remember seeing it everywhere. It was an option.
It's
I never
so different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Next, in the southeastern part of Ireland is Waterford. Waterford's this cool old like harbor town, which has some really cool history, some really beautiful old like hotels and things. But the big draw is the Waterford Crystal Museum. I did the Waterford Crystal Museum, and I will say I enjoyed it. It was very informative. You go around, you watch people actually cutting the crystal, and I would say it was worth an hour, but not worth going out of your way to get there.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. If you're using Ireland as like a stopgap to some of Europe proper, or maybe just the United Kingdom, like we said before, you can go to Northern Ireland, and you can do so by train or by car. Or if you're interested in Scotland or England, you can take a ferry. And if you're even interested in going to France, you can take an even longer ferry. But take note, it's about an 18-hour long ferry. So It's something you're interested in. Yeah, maybe keep that in mind.
Yeah. There you go. Let's talk about the language. There's this language called Gaelic, and I only heard a couple words of it while I was over there. Everyone just spoke English.
Yeah, so I guess I thought that Gaelic would be more abundant because it's the national language of Northern Ireland, so I thought it was going to translate to the Republic of Ireland, and that's not the case. The national language of the Republic of Ireland is Irish and English, and I did not know that there was a difference between Irish and Gaelic, but there is, so that's interesting.
Yeah. You will come away with some cool little words you learn
absolutely.
While you're over there.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Some practical things, adapter wise. So this is where it gets a little confusing. You are in a European Union country when you're in the Republic of Ireland. However, because you're off on the island of the UK, Ireland, so to speak, they use the same adapter as the UK. So whatever you used over there in London, England, Scotland, that area, it's the same adapter you're going to use in the Republic of Ireland.
Yes, and like we mentioned before, they do drive left like they do on the UK, so keep that in mind.
Right, which is different than the rest of the European Union, where they're going to drive on the right. So they use the euro.
Yes, they use the euro. You're going to need the euro. Yeah. Because they're a part of the European Union. But if you go to the UK, you're going to need a different currency.
When you take that 2-hour train from Dublin to Belfast, we recommend you do that. Check out Northern Ireland. Listen to our Northern Ireland episode. Get so excited by it. You are going to need a pound sterling for that.
Absolutely.
And then the last thing, standby item, is when you're flying home. So one pretty cool thing about Dublin Airport in particular is they have an agreement with a few airports back in the U.S. where you actually clear U.S. customs there in Dublin Airport. So I know like Delta flies back to Boston and JFK, and they offer this service. The standby item that we want to give you is, or maybe more of a tip, get to the airport a good 3 to 3.5 hours early for your flight home, because you're going to have to clear Irish exit customs as well as U.S. entry customs all there in Dublin Airport. So that way, when you get back to JFK or Boston Airport, and there's a couple other, I don't know which ones they are, you arrive in the domestic terminal. So it makes for a very easy re-entry into the USA.
Awesome. So I think with all that, all we have is our interview with Garvan.
Yeah.
Our interview with Garvan.
It's interview with the local.
We're here with Garvan from County Donegal, is it?
That's right. Yeah, Donegal.
There you go.
Say, you celebrate it. You say it with jubilation. Donegal.
Garvan, you can correct any of our pronunciations.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's fine. I'll just smirk.
So tell us about yourself. You always from Ireland? Where in Ireland have you lived? What's your history there?
Well, I grew up in Donegal, and then I went to university in Maynooth, which is about 40 kilometers west of Dublin. And with quite an interest in history, I studied medieval Irish and Celtic studies. And you think that might be unemployable enough, but I decided to do a double honors with philosophy to make sure that I was never going to get a job. But, both fascinating subjects, of course. And really, the Celtic studies, it really took the lead, because I became so incredibly blown away by all the marvelous wonders of ancient Irish history and culture and society from basically the 12th century backwards. So when you hear that, especially, let's say if there's any Americans listening, you think, oh, 12th century backwards. Well, okay, it's a very limited amount of time. And also I don't understand what the 12th century is, right? Because, well, in Ireland, our concept of history is so much longer. If you think about it, everything before the 12th century, that is most of Irish history. The last 800 years is just kind of, a small little gap. It's a gap year, really, for Ireland.
Sure, yeah. I remember coming to Ireland for the first time and seeing a cathedral that was older than my country. And then that's when I was put in a perspective of how old things are in Europe in comparison to America.
Yeah. And, you think of something 1,000 years old and you're like, wow, that's old. And then you're like, oh, here, this is something that's 2,000 years old. That's really old. And then you go to somewhere like Newgrange, which should be more famous really than it is, because it's this incredible portal tomb, this passage tomb that you can walk into about 15, 20 meters, and it's aligned with the winter solstice. And it's an incredible, it's a big stone structure monument that was built like an inconceivably long time ago, right? Like over 5,200 years ago.
Wow.
So you have to kind of do a bit of maths there. I was like, okay, that is minus 3,200. That is 3,200 BC, which is like, those pointy things in the desert in Africa, the ones, the triangle shaped ones.
Yeah.
Pyramids, those things. So it's 500 years older than the pyramids.
Where is this in relation to Dublin?
Oh, so it's like a day trip away. It's not that far away. So it's about 70 kilometers northwest of Dublin.
Okay.
And it's incredible. And that whole area is like the Irish Valley of the Kings. So really, this is kind of what I studied. And unfortunately, because most people who come to Ireland don't have a degree in ancient history, they don't know about all of these wonders. And that's the one thing I would say to people who are coming to Ireland is go to the Boyne Valley. So that's Boyne, Boyne Valley, and it's in County Meath, roughly. Meath is Meath, and yes, we pronounce the letter H rather than H.
We can follow on. What do you say for Z? Do you say Z?
Well, we say Z. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
But the Z kind of makes sense because it has a Z sound, whereas H should be pronounced H because it has a H sound. So we say herbs and not herbs, for example. Anyway, let's skip from the herbs and go back to kind of the ancient monuments. Yeah. But that's one area that a lot of tourists and travelers that come to Ireland don't know about, and they really should check it out.
Garvan, I think that's such a good point. I know on previous episodes we've talked about the importance of a tour guide, how you can show up in a country and think, oh yeah, I can do this on my own. And you can do the country on your own, but you don't know what you're missing. And a tour guide is able to bring out all these great wonders and truths and history about a location. And I'm sure that probably brings you a lot of joy, Garvan, as you're taking people, particularly first timers.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of following on from what I learned in university. To have this knowledge revealed to you gave me an ability to sort of read the landscape, read the culture, and be able to translate that to people.
That's cool.
Including Irish people, because there is so much here in terms of history and culture, and so much of it that's hidden or lost that people don't know about, even Irish people. Yeah. So it's just a remarkable country, and people come here and they compare the size of it to, well, if they're looking at a map of Europe, they might compare it to France. If they're coming from the US, they're going to compare it to a US state. And really, the Republic of Ireland is about the size of West Virginia.
Wow.
Right? So it's not huge, but it's so concentrated, right? And you could say dense. There's just a lot of things here.
Yeah.
So some people think that when they fly into Dublin, they will, go and do a tour, whether a chauffeur tour or a bus tour over to the west of Ireland, to famous Galway and the Cliffs of Moher, which is kind of like one of the ancient natural wonders of Ireland. These incredible cliffs that are about 200 meters high, and they stretch for roughly about 5 to 7 kilometers, and it's just quite a sight. But they go over there and then they kind of come back to Dublin in one day. Yeah. And it's great to be in Ireland to be able to do that, but also you should really just rent a car, go off to the west, drive the west coast, and just spend your time along the west coast. That's kind of the most scenic part of Ireland.
So it sounds like you like the west coast, but what is your personal favorite place to go as a local?
Oh, as a local, because I normally live in Dublin, but you mean as someone who lives in Dublin or someone in Ireland?
I'll take both.
Yeah.
Let's take both, yeah. So let's do Ireland first, since that's kind of the scale that we're working with at the moment. So just like people don't know about the Boyne Valley, people don't know about these sea cliffs that are in my native county of Donegal, and they are 3 times higher than the Cliffs of Moher. Right, 3 times, right? Wow. Over 600 meters high. And basically what you're looking at is a mountain, half of which has collapsed into the sea, right? So it's just like a cross section of a mountain. So you look at it, and it's a bit like looking at the Grand Canyon, where you can't really conceive the size of it, right? Your perspective is kind of skewed because you don't know what you're looking at, really. Your eyes have never seen something like that before. So that's an incredible sight, and it's all the way up in the northwest of Ireland, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one that's kind of under-visited, you could say, at least compared to the Cliffs of Moher.
Sure.
And then I suppose let's just go to Dublin, where a lot of people know about, the Guinness Storehouse, They might know about Kilmainham Jail, which is an incredible place to go visit. Actually, because Ireland's just filled with history, that there's always some anniversary on. And today is the 12th of May. And on the 12th of May, 1916, there were two men executed in Kilmainham Jail. And the jail itself is, you need to take a bus or a taxi to get there. So it's not exactly in the city centre of Dublin.
Right.
One of the few attractions that isn't in the city centre, actually. The great thing about Dublin is everything is pretty nearby and close. It's a great walkable city. I digress. So this event, or these two executions, were I don't know if they were the last ones. No, they weren't the last executions, but they were the two executions of two of the leaders of the 1916 rebellion. And when you say to an Irish person the year 1916, it has the same connotations as saying to an American 1776.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Right. So it's the start of the rebellion. It's the start of what leads to Irish independence. And the two men executed were James Connolly and Sean McDiarmid. Sean McDiarmid was the second signatory on the Proclamation of Irish Independence. And he was actually my great-grand uncle.
Wow.
That's cool.
There's a family connection there.
Sure.
And on the centenary in 2016, I was actually there in the stonebreakers yard of the jail on the very day, 100 years to the day.
That sounds cool.
When he was executed. So that is just a tiny snippet of the huge amount of history in that jail. You have the Irish equivalent of, let's say, Jefferson and Lincoln,
right,
and Roosevelt, for example. Like the Irish equivalent of those guys were either jailed there or executed there, let's say.
Wow. Lots of history.
So,
Garvan, at I want to say it right so badly, Kilmainham jail, which, by the way, and if you're booking this tour, it'll say GOAL, which must be the Irish way of spelling jail. So little pro tip there. Go ahead. Goal.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. So if you just try typing in Dublin and
jail.
Then Gael with a GAOL. So GAOL.
Is this Gaelic?
No, it's actually the old spelling of jail.
Oh.
I know, it's crazy.
It's good.
I like the new spelling.
It's actually, besides it being kind of creepy in there, it's kind of gorgeous at the same time. I know Shawshank Redemption was not filmed there because it was actually filmed here in our state of Ohio. A side note to come to Ohio. But I want to say there's an interior portion, and am I totally off here in that they kind of got like the idea of it for Shawshank Redemption? Does that ring a bell?
Well, it has featured in movies.
Oh.
So it's featured, of course, in some Irish movies. It was in this great movie starring Liam Neeson, who plays the Irish George Washington, who was Michael Collins. Michael Collins was kind of the leader of the Irish army during the War of Independence against the British, and he was assassinated in 1922. So Liam Neeson plays this 32-year-old, even though Liam Neeson is 46 at the time. But it's a brilliant movie, and part of it's filmed in Kilmainham Jail. Actually, if you want to see a trailer of the movie, if you just go to YouTube and type in Dublin Tour Guide, I've created this playlist of trailers for Irish movies. So that's a great way to kind of get yourself warmed up before you come visit Ireland.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So there's some great videos there. But it's also was where part of the Italian Job was filmed, believe it or not, the 1969, I want to say, movie.
Okay, so the original.
So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. How sick of seeing castles are you?
Well, yeah, I see my tell, like castles are new stuff. They're new, you know.
Really?
We got stuff that's really old. But there are quite a few castles. In fact, well, I booked a stay at a castle today. That's just kind of a normal thing to do.
Can you please tell us around the price of it? I'm so curious.
Oh, this one. Oh, this was just kind of a little weekend thing. Nothing super special. But you know, this was like 110 euro per person per night.
Yeah, that's
like 220 euro for two people, for a couple.
That's awesome. Cool. That's really cool.
Well, I'm noticing there's a difference in Ireland between booking a stay at a castle versus booking a stay at a castle hotel. Are you familiar with the difference there?
Well, they're mainly castles, or at least manors, or some sort of domain.
Sure, so, but if your giant bus group is going to a castle for the night, I'm learning there's a high chance it's a castle hotel, which is a hotel that's shaped like a castle that can hold about 300 people.
yeah. Thankfully, we don't have too many of them. Okay. So the appeal of these kind of domains. So what you had were these, you know, Anglo-Irish, which is basically kind of British people who had settled in Ireland. They established, you know, first of all, a castle. And then as time went on, like the 1700s and the 1800s, they would build something a bit more modern, you know, which was, of course, you know, still a huge manor, and surrounded by their domain, their land. And after independence, what happened was a lot of these Anglo-Irish families either ensconced themselves in their houses, or because they, you know, Ireland was no longer part of the United Kingdom, they went back to Britain, sold the houses. So a lot of them became kind of, well, hotels, but like most of them are converted in a tasteful way, in my experience.
I would love to overnight. I would love to overnight in a castle someday. But we want to ask you, as a Dubliner, if that's a word, what tour are you most excited about? What gets you most excited to take your guests on?
Yeah, well, we have a few tours, and you know, when I started tour guiding, which of course followed on from studying medieval Irish and Celtic studies, and when I started, it was all about the history and telling people the history. But as I learned and kind of experienced it more, it was more and more about connecting with people. So that's why we only do private tours, because you make more of an authentic connection with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 2 or 3 people versus 30 people, you know, right. So I'd much rather chat to 2 or 3 people. So, you know, I started with the public tours, then started doing the private tours, and the public tours are only like, you know, 1 hour to 3 hours long. But now when I do the private ones, I don't even bother with the 3 hours, because I'm like, that's not enough time. I have more things to show you and tell you.
Yeah.
So we have this tour called Nearly All of Dublin in 5 hours. So it's like nearly in brackets, you know, nearly. And that's a great tour that's very comprehensive. And we go and see the Book of Kells inside the fascinating old library of Trinity College. Have you seen it?
I have.
You been there?
It was like, I felt like I was in Harry Potter or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So an incredible, incredible library. Of course, for most people, the view of the library is the main seller, right? The big giveaway, the big takeaway rather. But for me, with all my knowledge of the Book of Kells and how incredible a masterpiece of early medieval art this is, and that whole age for Ireland, Ireland's glory age was kind of between 500 and 800 AD. And the Book of Kells was created at its zenith. But anyway, I'm not going to blabber on about the Book of Kells. You can just tell that I really love it.
Now my heart's aching as you're talking, because I skimmed through the Book of Kells like a loser, and then I got to the library and I was in awe, and then I left. And looking back, I really wish I would have had you to tell me what the heck I was looking at during the Book of Kells tour.
Yeah, well, I mean, communicating kind of the information of how the Book of Kells was created and all of that is only sort of part of the story. What I love to do is give people a real feeling for why the Book of Kells means so much to me and to the Irish nation, what it represents, and what it epitomizes, what Ireland was like back in this period, so that's kind of what I love to capture,
So in this day in Dublin, this 5 hours in Dublin, what all can you see in that 5 hour period?
Well, we will check out Dublin Castle, the Temple Bar area, Christchurch Cathedral, of course Trinity College, the GPO, which is the General Post Office on O'Connell Street, which is where the aforementioned 1916 Rising started. So being there is it's like the equivalent of if an American could actually stand on one of the boats where the Boston Tea Party happened.
Oh wow!
And get a feeling for what that means for your country and for your nation. That's what it feels like to be an Irish person, to stand inside the post office. And that's probably one of the most undervisited sites in all of Ireland, as in terms of how it contrasts with its significance as a historical site. Because it's right there in the center of the city. Irish people pass by it and they're reminded rather of what that means to them and how their parents regarded it and told them about it.
Yeah.
Just the 1916 rebellion is quite romanticized, of course, but it's got a lot of history, and it's kind of the start of how Ireland got independence. So that's a great place to visit. Well, so it's more about the places and their significance than ticking off each attraction like it's a checkbox.
Yeah. So what word of advice do you have for anyone who wants to visit Ireland?
Okay, well, if you've got 3 days, 2 or 3 days, just try to stay in Dublin and the surrounding area. So that is going just to the Boyne Valley, as I mentioned, for 1 day, and maybe another day going to the south to County Wicklow, just south of Dublin, where you can see the kind of famous green Irish landscape, and there's deer and bog and all the rest of it. So that's if you've got 3 days. And then if you've got like a week or longer, then rent a car. So the ideal period is, of course, 10 years. But if you haven't got 10 years, 2 weeks is good. 2 weeks is good to rent a car and just get to the west as quick as you can. I would say maybe even if you can fly into Shannon Airport in the west, rent a car and then drive. Well, you kind of, I want to send people up to Donegal, but County Kerry, there's a beautiful place, and it's very well known,
which has Killarney
for travelers and for tourists.
Is that correct?
Exactly, yeah. So it has a lot of these amenities and that kind of infrastructure that Donegal doesn't have. So if you haven't been to Ireland, definitely go to Kerry your first time. If you've been to Ireland already, then head up to Donegal in Northwest, because in 2016, Lonely Planet named Donegal as the coolest place on the planet, like #1 coolest place. So it is a remarkable place, and I show my friends from all over Europe pictures of Donegal, and they're like, "Oh my God!" I show my friends from Ireland pictures of Donegal. It's like, why have we not been here yet? Oh my God! Like beautiful sandy beaches. It's got the most beaches in Ireland, like the county with the most beaches, and a great time to come. So this is kind of important because the weather is infamous, right? Infamously inclement. The driest month of the year is ironically April.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
The driest month of the year, statistically. Summer comes at the end of May. So generally the last week of May, in my short life, I'm only 34, but when you're a kid, you pay attention to when it's not raining.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially up in Donegal. Donegal, it rains a good bit. Dublin is one of the driest parts of Ireland. So, you wouldn't have a problem with the weather and with rain in Dublin. In fact, if I didn't mention anything about the weather, you'd come to Dublin and you'd kind of be surprised by how little it rains. In fact, it rains more, or I should say, there is more precipitation in New York than in Dublin.
Interesting.
Wow. So keep that in mind. Don't be too afraid of the weather. But as I said, the end of May is a great time to come. June can be good, and August can be terrible sometimes. So it's a weird one. So I kind of aim to go early. April, May, June are good months.
That's a fantastic tip right there. Garvan, we can tell you are passionate about Ireland. You know your stuff. I want our listeners to blow up your request line with lots of new requests for touring Ireland. So how can our listeners find you and get a hold of your company?
Yeah, well, thanks very much. You can just Google Dublin Tour Guide. We should pop up. You should see a picture of me pointing at something in the distance in Dublin. But you could simply go to dublintourguide.ie. And you can see the collection of private walking tours that we do there. We don't offer anything else. We specialize in private walking tours because I've experienced that this is kind of the best way to properly connect with Dublin, with Ireland.
Very good. Garvan, as we finish up our interview here, would you like to hum us a few bars of Molly Malone?
Well, yeah, but I'll wait until you come and visit. Because I love doing it in front of the statue of Molly Malone and drowning out the sound of someone playing a guitar with an amplifier. So that's quite a sight to see. And we'll all sing it together.
All right. Well, Garvan, thanks so much for being with us here on the Travel Agents Podcast.
Brian and Will, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You know, one thing that makes this podcast unique from other travel podcasts is that we're actually travel agents and we work for a travel agency. My great-grandfather started a travel agency over 100 years ago, and we have the pleasure of working there now as travel agents. The travel agency is called Kima Travel. You can find us online at www.kima.travel. Kima spelled Chima. And the best part is that when you support Kima Travel by letting us book your trips, you're also supporting this podcast. So you get our great service as travel agents and you're supporting your favorite travel podcast.
Absolutely. And if you're not interested in booking a trip right now, but you want to support the show, you can find us at buymeacoffee.com. And you can find our particular page in the description below. We are at buymeacoffee.com/thetravelaagents.
We're the travel agents. That's the end of our show. Make sure to comment and subscribe.